I want to bring in two very special guests. He's the senator from the state of Kentucky you just mentioned, and he's in Washington, D.C. She's the political consultant, author. They're married to each other. She's in Kentucky. Welcome. Let me introduce you two together. You haven't seen each other for a while. Rand and Kelly Powell, thank you for being with us on Victory News today.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Senator Paul, the media loves to portray your legitimate questions to Dr. Fauci as some scene from a reality TV show, but they are legitimate questions. Instead of asking why, well, maybe there's something to this, we should investigate it, they like to amp it up. And the results are not good. What's very real is the left's reckless words that incite real violence. Kelly, you received a letter this week to that very point. Can you tell us about it?
I did, yes. It was terrifying. I walked to the mailbox and had a big stack of mail in my hands, and I sort of was holding it up against my chest as I was, rifling through the mail. And all of a sudden I see this letter with this horrible picture showing Rand, with a broken arm and beaten up face. And it said, I'm going to finish what your neighbor started, you MFer. And it had a image of a gun against his head. And I was terrified, of course, and just sort of immediately went to drop the letter, I was still outside. And when I did, I could feel that it had weight, and I could feel like something that felt like sand moving in the letter. So I dropped it. I went inside. I immediately called our chief of staff in D.C. so that he could contact the FBI. Called Rand. Had the Capitol Police and FBI contacted, and I was so afraid if it was anthrax or something. And Rand's like, you can't take any. You have to take every precaution. So I ran upstairs, I took a shower, I took all the clothes off that I was wearing, because I didn't know, even though I didn't open the letter, it was very thin paper, and I had been sort of holding it up against my shirt. It could have gotten on my clothes, my hands. So, I threw all my clothes out on the deck, and I, was upstairs taking a shower. So, it was several hours before we heard back from the authorities that they thought it was non-toxic, that they did not think it was anthrax or ricin or something horrible. But you can imagine how we felt during that time. This was a pure attempt at terrorizing us, and it did.
I recall when the two of you went to, I believe, the White House, and the president was speaking, and the mob that you had to walk through, and thank God the police were there to help you get through that in that day. Senator Paul, what has to be happening? This president's supposed to be the uniter. What do we have to do to turn the volume down?
Well, so much of sort of the internet is the same as mob violence. The mob that attacked us in D.C. is emboldened when they get together. If they can knock someone down, one person kicks them, then another person kicks the person. And it's like, well, if everybody's kicking them, people saying, oh, maybe I'll kick them. Before you know it, they're bloodied or dead. The internet's a little bit the same way, but more metaphorically. The internet's somewhat anonymous. So you have all these sort of B, C-list former celebrities out there trying to make a name for themselves, but they're encouraging violence. So every day on the internet, particularly on Twitter, we have people saying, oh, we wish someone would come finish the job. Look, I was assaulted from behind, had 6 ribs broken, lung damage, 2 pneumonias, coughed up blood for over a year, and then had part of my lung removed. And people think that's funny. They think that's hilarious. We have so-called comedians thinking that that's just jolly well to make fun of that, but they're normalizing this behavior, and it's a danger. It's a sad state for our country that we have people who think that because I have an opinion on immunity, that somehow an opinion on immunity deserves that someone should shoot me or send me anthrax or my wife anthrax. I think it's a crazy sort of world that we're living in.
And that's why we wanted the both of you to come on, because I want people to see that you see Senator Paul on television asking legitimate questions, doing what he's there to do, but there are families that are involved. And I think sometimes people forget that. Senator, I love your questioning that you've had of Dr. Fauci. In this, I've wondered, because I have a quote here from January the 11th, 2017, before that Trump was inauguration 9 days before, and he says no doubt Trump will face a surprise infectious disease outbreak, speaking at Georgetown University. And I remember seeing that thinking, how could he have known that in 2017? And then you began to run the timeline of the things. Do you think that that is the reason for this violence and this terrorism on your family?
I think that something's going on that's bigger than a lot of us realize. 2 weeks ago, anybody that mentioned that this virus might have started in the Wuhan lab were laughed at and were called conspiracy theorists. But now, you know what? There's really been a door open, and people are starting to say maybe this could have happened. But people are also asking the question, why was the U.S. government funding this lab in communist China? Why were we funding experiments where we take an animal virus and we juice it up to make it more infective into humans? Why would we be funding this kind of lab in a country that allows no free speech, that persecutes Christians? Why would we be allowing and giving money to a country like that? And Dr. Fauci's at the head of that. Even today, he was asked about, do you trust these Chinese scientists? And he says, oh, yes, they have a great record and we trust them. Well, frankly, I don't. And they're a rich country. They can pay for their own research, but I don't trust them to be forthright with us. And now we discover that 3 members that worked in that Wuhan lab were sick in November with a COVID-like illness. So, yeah, I don't trust them, but I do think that the truth is coming out. People are very, very angry. It seems like the anger is building. But, I don't want anybody on the other side to get hurt. I don't want anybody to get on our side to get hurt. But look, I was at the ball field when Steve Scalise almost died. He had his entire blood transfused in 24 hours. There's a lot of violence, and I seem to be on the receiving end of quite a bit of it. But it should change. And I don't wish ill for the other side. You would hope that some people on the left would come out and say, you know what, we don't want to attack, conservatives or Republicans. But I don't hear anyone on the left really coming and being sympathetic to myself or my wife. I haven't heard one Democrat say that they're hopeful that it wasn't anthrax or that we weren't poisoned. I haven't heard one of them say a thing.
Right. The silence is deafening. Real quickly, many people who have not received the vaccine that I've spoken to, they're not anti-vaxxers. They either already have the antibodies, and so they feel like they're immune because they already have the antibodies, or they don't trust the messenger. And by messenger, I'm including Donald Trump in this, the current president, Dr. Fauci. They don't trust what they're seeing and what they're hearing. Your thoughts?
All of the scientific evidence, all of the journal articles, all of the studies so far show that your immunity is about the same with the vaccine as it is with getting the virus naturally. There was a study, a controlled study in Israel recently, and it showed the same immunity. But there's an important public policy question here. In India, there's not enough vaccine. So should we try to conserve the vaccine by giving it to people who have not yet been infected with COVID? That might be millions of people in India that we would go to those who are more at risk rather than giving the vaccine to those who are at less risk. So I think there's a really important question here, and people can disagree and they can quote studies from the other side, but the evidence is pretty strong that you do get immunity after being infected. That's what vaccines are based on. The other side says, we don't know how long the vaccine will last or how long the immunity from the natural disease lasts. Well, the same is true of the vaccine. We don't know how long that will last, and yet we're not saying we shouldn't get vaccinated. I'm for the vaccine, but I'm also for using an intelligent approach that says those who have been infected ought to have a choice, ought to be allowed to think about it, and look at the studies that show, yes, we do have immunity if we've had the infection.
Absolutely true. Kelly, I've got the article here from the Washington Times that says Rand Paul's wife rips activists. I want to give you an opportunity to say something to the people who keep wishing ill on your husband and your family.
Thank you. Yeah, I did feel like I really needed to speak out. And to Rand's point, we have not heard from a single Democrat colleague. And many of those people we've known and we've had a very cordial relationship with. It's time for them to stand up and speak out about this. We never heard from anyone sort of giving us any kind of solidarity or sympathy when we were mobbed. And yes, this was a terrifying experience. Also, a lot of the hatred and vitriol that is sent our way on the internet is from paid Democrat activists. There is a group called Really American One, and they pay these 2 horrible men. One is called Brooklyn Dad, the other one's T-Pain. For the last 4 years, they repeatedly send out all these awful tweets that they hope Rand gets his ribs broken again, or the man that assaulted Rand is a hero, or the man that assaulted Rand should be elected to the Senate. These are paid activists, and I think it's high time the Democrat Party condemns this. As Rand said, he and I wish ill will on no one. I respect all of our colleagues. We cannot be in a world where we're hoping someone has physical pain or suffering to them and their family. So I would just ask for them to speak out against what has happened to us. I also want to say, though, while the internet is full of a lot of nastiness, I had over 70,000 likes. I don't know what the number is now, to a message that I sent out yesterday thanking everyone for their prayers. And I've had so many people contact me that say that their prayer group is praying for me, that their Zoom call was all in a group prayer for me and Rand and our family, for our protection and our safety. And I just want to thank all of the people that have been so kind and so encouraging. And we do really appreciate all of your prayers.
Amen. I agree with you. I love your closing remark. I want to read this. Rand will continue to stand up for our constitutionally protected liberties. He will keep questioning the experts. We won't be intimidated. And yes, we have guns. Love that. Absolutely hilarious. Kelly, Paul, thank you for being with her. You're welcome here anytime. If you want to bring the senator along with you, we'd be more than happy to have that as well. So thank you both for being with us on Victory News today. God bless you.
Thank you.